Imagine placing the lives and fates of millions into the trembling hands of an emotionally unstable 16-year-old boy. The result wouldn't be a utopia, it would be catastrophe. In 54 AD, the Roman Empire made that terrifying thought experiment a reality. They elevated a spoiled, art-obsessed teenager to the position of emperor. His name was Nero. History remembers him as a monster, the man who murdered his mother, kicked his pregnant wife to death, and famously fiddled while Rome burned. But that history was written by his enemies. The true story of Nero is far more complicated, a web of political maneuvering, artistic genius, and unimaginable horror. Nero never wanted to be emperor. He wanted to be a star. And when the world's greatest empire became his stage, the performance ended in blood, fire, and the collapse of a dynasty. Nero was born Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus in 37 AD. Though related to the Julio-Claudian line, he was nowhere near the throne until the most powerful, ruthless woman in Rome decided he would be. That woman was his mother, Agrippina the Younger. Agrippina was a political force of nature, driven by an ambition that dwarfed even that of her ancestors. After the Emperor Caligula, her brother, was assassinated, and her uncle Claudius took the throne, Agrippina set her plan into motion. She manipulated her way into marrying Claudius, becoming empress. Her final decisive move was securing Nero's adoption by Claudius, pushing aside Claudius's own biological son, Britannicus. For Agrippina, the power was the goal, and Nero was simply the key. In 54 AD, Claudius died, poisoned according to most sources, with deadly mushrooms slipped to him by Agrippina herself. Nero was just 16 when he was thrust onto the throne. The first 5 years of his reign, however, were surprisingly competent. Guided by the philosopher Seneca the Younger and the Praetorian prefect Burrus, the quinquennium Neronus was marked by moderate governance and fair taxation. But the peace couldn't last. The price Nero paid for his power was his mother's suffocating control. Nero's adulthood was a struggle for independence against the architect of his reign. Agrippina was accustomed to ruling through her son, attending Senate meetings and expecting absolute deference. But Nero chafed under her influence. The struggle came to a head in 59 AD. Nero, exhausted by his mother's interference, decided she had to be eliminated. His first attempt was elaborate, almost farcical, a custom-built, collapsible boat designed to sink at sea. When Agrippina, remarkably, survived the staged shipwreck and swam ashore, Nero abandoned subtlety. He simply sent a unit of soldiers to her villa. The ancient sources tell a chilling, poetic story. As the soldiers approached, Agrippina bared her stomach and demanded they stab her there, claiming she had nurtured a monster. Whether true or embellished, the result was the same. Nero finally had absolute power, but the act broke something in him. The popular support he enjoyed began to crack. With Burrus dead and Seneca forced into retirement, Nero was free to indulge his two obsessions, his artistic passion and his hedonistic extravagance. Nero genuinely believed he was a gifted singer, poet, and lyre player. He began performing publicly, even competing in the Olympics in Greece, forcing Roman elites to watch his performances, a humiliating experience for men who considered theatrical performance beneath their dignity. For the common people, however, this emperor was relatable, a man of the street. They loved his shows. Then came the catastrophe that would forever define his name, the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD. The fire raged for 6 days and 7 nights, destroying 2/3 of the city. The famous, chilling rumor spread immediately that Nero watched the inferno from a high vantage point, singing his own composition about the fall of Troy, accompanying himself on the lyre. While modern historians doubt he personally started the fire, the rumor stuck. Crucially, Nero acted immediately to seize land in the newly devastated center of Rome to build his new palace, the Domus Aurea, the Golden House, a vast, sprawling complex complete with an artificial lake and a colossal statue of himself. This spectacle of self-indulgence amid widespread ruin convinced the people that he was guilty. To deflect the blame for the fire and finance his extravagant building projects, Nero needed a scapegoat and a victim. He found both in a small, controversial religious sect, the Christians. Nero became one of the first Roman emperors to actively persecute Christians, subjecting them to unimaginable horrors. They were nailed to crosses, torn apart by dogs, and, most grotesquely, coated in pitch and set on fire to serve as human torches, lighting Nero's nighttime garden parties. This act cemented his reputation among early Christian writers as the Antichrist. His tyranny extended to the highest ranks. Following the unsuccessful Pisonian conspiracy to overthrow him, Nero launched a wave of executions. Among the victims was his old mentor, Seneca, who was forced to commit suicide. Nero's personal life was equally monstrous. He banished and later executed his first wife, Octavia. He then married his mistress, Poppaea Sabina. Ancient sources claim that during a casual outburst of rage, he kicked Poppaea while she was pregnant, leading to her death. Later, in a bizarre display of grief and madness, he married a young boy named Sporus, whom he forced to undergo castration because the boy bore a resemblance to the dead Poppaea. By 68 AD, the provinces had had enough. Revolts broke out in Gaul and Spain. The Roman Senate declared Nero a public enemy, and the Praetorian Guard, whose loyalty he had bled dry, abandoned him. Fleeing Rome with a handful of loyal servants, Nero sought refuge in a suburban villa. When news arrived that the Senate had declared him to be punished more majorum, stripped naked and beaten to death with rods, Nero finally panicked. He reportedly cried out, "What an artist dies in me!" Before his captors could reach him, he held a dagger to his throat and, with the help of his secretary Epaphroditus, committed suicide. He was 30 years old. The death of Nero, the last of the Julio-Claudian line, plunged Rome into the chaos of the Year of Four Emperors. But unlike Caligula, Nero was not universally hated. He was an emperor of contradictions, a killer who abolished capital punishment, a tyrant who was adored by the common people. His legacy is a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest monsters are those who desperately crave applause.